So welcome back to our series on making remote work actually work. Because if you don't plan it properly, remote work can be your worst nightmare. Now, in order to make it work, we have three pillars. We've covered this more than once now: practicality, legality, and productivity. And we are currently looking at the legal pillar. We have looked at labor law and company law, and now we are on to general protections. Your company is obviously still subject to all the laws of your country, regardless of where your employees are sitting. So your policies, your procedures, and your management processes all need to ensure that the general laws of your country are upheld. Now, this is something you probably do automatically after years of being a law-abiding citizen. So I'm not very worried about your documents or SOPs when it comes to protecting yourself from general law. However, I do want you to think through the practical aspects of a remote worker and how to protect yourself from financial loss and legal liability. Because you want to write these things into your contracts, policies, and procedures so that you are legally covered in all events. So firstly, you need to make sure you have policies that cover all the aspects of your business. And most accounting firms have policies for work delivery and code of conduct, and most of you will have privacy policies and probably AML policies. But you need an entire policy to govern remote work and how it works in your company. It can be part of your general work policy or it can be on its own, but you need it. You need policies to govern the use of your software and equipment. And of course, cybersecurity has been mentioned more than once by now. And this is not really related to remote work, but one I know that very few accounting firms have set yet. You need an AI policy, something that governs how AI and technology in general is used within your company. Because what I am trying to say is that your firm is most likely extremely law-abiding for the simple fact that accountants normally are very law-abiding. So you and your employees are good citizens. But in order to protect your firm, you need to have that law-abidingness in writing. So please review all of your policies and make sure they cover every aspect of your business. And this little picture here is a reminder. If you are in the UK, we have a free governance checklist for you. We put the link under this video again. But we are talking policy review. So when it comes to remote work specifically, I want you to pay special attention to two areas. Firstly, you want to look at how this pertains to equipment. So in the practicality pillar, we looked at the hardware that your remote workers will need and the question of whether or not you would provide this hardware or make them use their own. Now, generally speaking, the cybersecurity considerations weigh heavily in favor of you providing the equipment. But if you do, you also want to be protected from financial loss. In other words, what happens if the equipment is damaged? And what happens if the remote worker absconds and takes the equipment with them? The second thing you should be considering is the protection of information. I know I've already mentioned your privacy policy and your cybersecurity policy, but it is one thing to have the policies. It is another thing to ensure that they cover remote working and another thing to ensure that they're actually followed. So it isn't you and your company who's left holding the bag when things go wrong. So with that in mind, I want you to consider two extra safeguards. The first is insurance. Have a chat with your insurance provider and make sure that the equipment in your remote worker's possession is covered, that it is covered for theft generally and theft by the remote worker, that you have cover for your privacy policy and cybersecurity infringements. So if an employee does infringe on any of these things, you are covered by your insurance policy, and that these insurances cover remote workers, even remote workers in other countries. So please do go and chat to your insurance broker and make sure you are protected. The second thing I want you to do is set aside budget for experts. Now, I know I mentioned this already when it comes to cybersecurity, but it is important in other areas as well. It is a good idea to get an HR professional to help you with your employment contracts, or to at least review them to ensure you are compliant with labor law. It's a good idea to get a lawyer to help you draw up or at least review your policies, especially things like privacy, cybersecurity, and AML. And yes, get a security expert to help you with your strategy and your procedures for protection against cybercrime. I know that these things don't just represent a cost, they represent a high cost. We aren't talking about expensive professionals. This is expertise. But I have also said this more than once. You encourage your clients to give their complex financial matters to you, which you charge for, hopefully really well. Why? Because you know what you are doing, and you know what the implications are if they handle these things themselves and get them wrong. So please apply that same line of thinking to the areas in which you are not the expert, because you get what you pay for. If you do it yourself, it's free until something goes wrong. If you get a cheap expert, it's cheap until something goes wrong. So even if you have to save up for the expert assistance, please do so. Please budget for expert assistance and knowledge in these three areas. Because this pillar isn't just about getting ready for remote work. This pillar is about protecting you while your remote work is working. So it is really important to make this pillar particularly strong. We have now finished the first two pillars, and in the next video, we will move on to the final one and look at how we make sure you are productive with your remote work and working policies.